we're going to talk about A Christmas Story. Now, my family and I, we just watched this last night. My wife does not like this movie at all. She doesn't like the Santa scene. I'm like, that's just amazing. Like, that Santa is just like the camera view where it spins around the room and everything is just perfect. But we're going to talk about A Christmas Story today. And what I want to specifically talk to you about is that I want to talk to you today about guarding your imagination. Now, Ralphie, I was going to bring my son's Red Ryder BB gun, but I didn't know if I didn't want to accidentally go off and shoot a bulb out or something or shoot my eye out. And so Ralphie, obviously we know the story. How many have not seen The Christmas Story? Regina. Val hasn't either? Wow, okay. Well, those of you that know the story, you know that Ralphie, in the worst way, wanted the Red Ryder BB gun. 200 BB holder with a compass and a stock, carbine action. You know how it goes. And he wants all of this stuff, and we learn very quickly that Ralphie has quite the imagination. And the imagination that he just daydreams all of the time. And I want to talk to you about that. That's the direction I want to go in this morning, is guarding our imagination, because I look at a story like that, and there were even cartoon figures way back that this kid was known for daydreaming constantly and going into battles and all that stuff. And you know, all of us deal with our imagination in one way or another. Any of us could probably go through this room at any point and say, this is what I dreamed about this week. This is what I dreamed about this week. This is what I dreamed about last week. This is what I dreamed about last night. How many remember your dream from last night when you were sleeping? Anybody? No? Okay, a few of you. Anakin, yeah. And so we have these stories in our mind that play out, and it's innocent enough, okay? Our imaginations can go. What's interesting is you can ask a lady, what are you thinking about right now? Okay, Tracy and I do this. Tracy, what are you thinking about right now? Well, I'm thinking about the kids. I have this work thing going on. I have this and that. I have this going on. And then she'll stop. She goes, what are you thinking about? And I go, I'm kind of thinking about what would happen if I joined forces with Luke Skywalker. That would have been such a good scenario. Really? Really? That's what you're thinking about? Yeah, actually, that's what I am thinking about right now. And that's just how guys are. You know, there was the old Third Rock from the Sun, and he could just turn his brain off and just sit there, you know, and do that sort of thing. But the fact is, we all have an imagination. We all have pictures that we see in our mind. God created you and me to be visual beings, okay? That's why we're always looking around. That's why we're always looking at different things. If you're a guy, maybe as a guy you can relate, maybe some ladies too. But as a guy, if I go out to a restaurant with somebody, typically, if you're a guy, where do you want to sit? Do you want to sit with your back to the door or your eyes looking at the main door? Typically for me, I want to sit where I'm looking at the restaurant, okay? That's just me. Like, I want to be able to scan the room, know what's going on here, and then we can proceed, you know, just in case. I don't know what would happen, but it's like a movie screen. Different images come up all the time in our imagination. Sometimes we're not even thinking about it, and a negative imagination will pop into our head, okay? We'll see our business go down, our child getting off course, us losing our health. All these things, these imaginations start popping into our mind, and it's not always a good thing. There's no truth to it. It's not going to come to pass, but if you let that play, you'll go through the day worried, stressed out, and quite honestly, burdened down because our imagination is running wild. You see, wrong imaginations will keep you awake at night. Dwelling on these negative images will cause us to live in fear. Again, they may have no substance to them, but for some reason we wake up and we're full of anxiety. For some reason, middle of the day, something hits us in our vision, in our imagination, and there's no merit to it, but it's bogging us down. Why is that? That's just how people function sometimes. Here's an example of Ralphie letting his imagination get the best of him. Video 1.
All right, class, I have your Christmas themes for you. I'm pleased. In general, you did very well.
Oh, this is it. C plus. Oh no, it can't be.
C plus? C plus?
Oh no. You shoot your eye out? My mother must have gotten to Miss Shields. There could be no other explanation.
You'll shoot your eye out! You'll shoot your eye out!
Was there no end to this conspiracy of irrational prejudice against Red Ryder and his peacemaker?
These multiplication questions were most missed in our last math test. Would you answer in unison, please?
I was surrounded by happier kids who were all going to get what they wanted for Christmas.
56.
All right, so there you go. You got Ralphie, who's letting his mind run wild. Maybe my mom got in touch with the teacher and they're prejudiced towards the Red Rider and his peacemaker, and all of these things are going. That wasn't the case. His mom never talked to the teacher if you watched the thing. But this is where imaginations go, and I realize that's a lighthearted example, but we've had these things play out in our mind over and over again, that worst case scenario. I know for sometimes people always function in that. Well, this could happen. Well, we go to worst case scenario right away regarding what could come or what could happen. You see, wrong imaginations will keep you awake at night. It will keep you from experiencing God's best in your life if we let these imaginations play out in our mind. And you know, at the end of the day, it's just an imagination. Okay? There may be something legitimate in your life that's going on, but for some reason, we let things get into our mind and play over and over and over again, realizing that this could be very bad. You ever have somebody that comes up to you and says, "We need to talk"? As a pastor, that's a red flag, okay? But you ever had that person come up to you and say, "We need to talk"? And instantly, and you're like, "Okay, let's talk, or let's go right now. What's up?" "Well, we can't right now, but how about let's schedule something in 2 days?" And for the next 2 days, your mind is like, "Oh my gosh, what did I say? Did I say something to them? Did I let them down? Did I, maybe you have a health scare in your life and the doctor calls and says, 'We need to meet.'" "Okay, I can be there right now." "No, we don't have an appointment till next week, Thursday." Oh, so now your mind's going, the imagination's just going, and you don't know what's going on. It will keep you from expecting God's best, and it is an imagination. It's one thing to have something to deal with that's actually happening. Those things come in our life, and we have to experience it. We have to go through it. We have to walk through it. We all face challenges, but too often we let the what ifs cause us to live stressed out. But the good news is that Scripture talks about you control what pictures play in your mind. So what's playing in your mind right now? Okay? What pictures are playing over and over again in your mind right now? This is something worth thinking about. Is it really that bad? Is it really going to be that difficult? Is it really going to be, whatever the case may be? Just because that negative image comes doesn't mean you have to tune in. We can always change the channel. You see, in 2 Corinthians chapter 10:5, it says, "We demolish arguments and every pretension that sets itself up against the knowledge of God. And we take captive every thought to make it obedient to Christ." When I think about different things, they'll show us all of the worst case scenarios. That's how minds work. You sit down with somebody, you start talking about something. Sometimes that person will just go worst case scenario. The doctor needs to talk to me. Oh my goodness. As I said on Facebook, cue up Swing Low, Sweet Chariot. We just don't know what's going on. We don't know where it's going. And all of a sudden we realize it's really not actually that bad. I had somebody call me this week. They had to go to the doctor's office with one of their relatives, and they just instantly, it's like when I know this person, whenever doctor's involved or whatever, they go to worst case scenario. And inevitably, 99% of the time, it's followed up with a callback saying, "Oh, it really wasn't actually that bad." Like, well, no, it wasn't. The fact of the matter is that, we can get through these things. Now, I know that guys and ladies handle things differently. I can lay there in bed with a fever and, all of that stuff. A guy can lay there and just, start thinking the worst, and then there's the voice of reason, my wife, who will come alongside and say, "Oh yeah, that's so terrible. You know what I got to deal with every and all that stuff." It's like, okay, I got nothing. But yet I have one friend who has a dad who, whenever he gets sick, and he's got the old Pentecostal upbringing in his life, and whenever he gets sick, he lays in bed and he sings hymns quietly about going home. Okay, because it's just hilarious, But things aren't that bad. Things really aren't that bad. When I think about things, when I think about different things, they'll show us all the worst case scenarios. Have you ever noticed when you're in the heat of the battle, you never see pictures of you overcoming? It's because the enemy wants us to think this way. It's because the devil wants us to put thoughts into our mind. Now, when we're in the heat of the battle, he wants us to have a defeated mentality. When you see these negative pictures, don't go for it. Don't go for it in your life. They are not reality. That is not predicting your future. The fact is that is a wrong imagination that we need to get out of our mind and realize this isn't going to be so bad. For whatever reason, Monday morning, something pops into your head. It may have no merit. You need to get that out of your mind. Scripture says, set your mind on things above. So in other words, start thinking about the other positive things in life and get into a right frame of thought. Quit worrying about something that's not going to happen. Quit losing sleep over something that's just in your mind. That's the enemy trying to stress you out. He knows he can't bring it to pass. He doesn't have that authority according to Scripture to bring it to pass. So the next best thing he'll do is try to deceive you into believe that it's a reality so you don't enjoy your life. There's nothing more the enemy wants for us than to live life trotting along and saying, woe is me, life is bad, things are rough. When in fact, you actually have a pretty decent life, but for some reason your imagination is getting the best of you. Ralphie is consumed with the thought that everybody, even Santa, thinks he's going to shoot his eye out. Okay? And that's really not the case. People are just saying, Ralphie, you're 9 years old. You maybe are a little too young for a Red Ryder BB gun. As we find out later in the movie, his dad had one when he was 8. Okay? And all of these things go on and on. Don't fall into that trap. Guard your mind. Guard your imagination. I'll read this story to you. There was a man that was very concerned about his health. His father died at the age of 46. True story. His grandfather died at 51, and other relatives had died early deaths as well. All through his 30s and 40s, he was so stressed and so fearful. Every voice said, that's going to be you. Too bad it's in your genes. You're not going to make it. Those images would come in his mind. His father getting sick, going downhill. When he made it to his 47th birthday, he was so happy, so relieved. He made it past his father, and he was still strong and healthy. The thought said, don't get too happy you made it to 47, but you'll never make it to 51. It's just a matter of time. Those images kept coming, him going downhill, losing his health, but he made it past 51. He made it past 61. He made it past 71. He made it past 81. He was 93 years old, looked like he was 70, strong, healthy, joyful. He said, if I had to do it over again, I wouldn't have lived all of those years worried, losing sleep, afraid that my health was going to last. There's a good lesson in there. Just because other people are living that way, just because situations in life are saying this is how it's going to be, doesn't mean that's how you have to live. So the question is, are you worrying about a wrong imagination? Are you going to look back years from now and have to say like him, if I could do it over again, I wouldn't spend all that time discouraged, afraid over what I thought was going to happen. Because if we worry about it, if we live life worried about what we thought was going to happen, it's going to cripple us. It's going to keep us from moving forward, enjoying life, experiencing a good life, and experiencing all our family, all that God has for us. So the question is, why don't we start changing the channel? Those negative pictures are not reality. Scripture says we have to, as we read earlier, we have to bring down every high thing that exalts itself above what God says about you. What's interesting about that scripture, and when you pause to look at scripture, you have to understand the verbiage that's being used. It says we have to bring down every high thing that exalts itself. God's not going to do it for you. You have to bring it down. That image is not going to automatically come, but you can create it. You use your imagination for the right purposes to see what God says about you. God says, with long life, he will satisfy you. Instead of watching that channel of you going downhill, bring down that imagination. Start seeing yourself in a different light. There's nothing wrong with that. To look at yourself and say, that isn't me. That's not what I'm about. That's not what's going to happen. I'm going to press forward and change the channel. See, Isaiah chapter 61 verse 3 says, beauty instead of ashes, the oil of joy instead of mourning, and a garment of praise instead of a spirit of despair. Those pictures that are showing you defeated, rejected, all of those things, lonely, they're exalting themselves above what God said about you. Don't let them stay up there. Bring them down. It's not a reality. It's just a thought that you have that you got to get out of your head. It's just a thought in your head that you need to battle with and say, that does not belong there. See, the enemy is going to show you ashes. What he won't show you is the beauty that's coming out of you. You may be in a low spot in life, but out of that, there comes beauty. He'll show you the loss, the enemy. What he won't show you is the new beginning that's on the way. He'll show you that it's downhill from here, but you got to do your part. Protect your imagination. How do you do that? Well, pray. It's a good start. Read the scriptures. Maybe listen to an old message. Turn on Christian radio. Whatever the case is, to get your mind off of the doldrums of life and focus on something that's bigger. The mistake that many people make is they only watch one channel. When I go home from church today, I can turn on the TV. If the Packers are playing and they aren't doing well, I have 500 other channels I can choose from. Nobody is going to make me say, you have to drudge through this show you don't want to watch. Okay? I can flip over to something else, HGTV. Okay? Here's a couple in their 20s. He sharpens pencils for a living, and she braids horses' tails, and their budget is $23 million a week. Okay, HGTV. That's what it seems like. And you can sit there and be like, oh, okay. Nobody's forcing me to watch that. I can change the channel. Boom, done. Now I'm watching Shelby the Swamp Guy. Okay, that's my show. Okay, that boy's not operating with a full deck, and I love him. Okay. And so now I'm watching something that I really want to watch. That's our life. If something's bringing you down, switch the channel. Flip it over. Here's my life motto. It has been since I started youth ministry 23 years ago. Don't complain about what you permit. Plain and simple. Don't complain about what you permit. If you have a friend that's bringing you down, switch friends. Okay? If the holidays are getting tough on you, don't do so much. If the tree is stressing you out because you can't get all the ornaments on or the lights aren't fixing it right, pitch the thing out the door. Okay? Your kids won't care as long as there's a gift sitting there. They don't care. Okay? Set up the little porcelain tree. It's all good. Don't complain about what you permit. Flip the channel. Ralphie decided to focus on what he wanted. Now, Ralphie had an imagination. He could let the negative stuff get the best of him, but his shining moment was earlier on when he knew what the Red Ryder BB gun meant to him. Let's watch this one.
Mothers know nothing about creeping marauders, purr-wings with the snow toward the kitchen, where only you and you alone stand between your tiny, huddled family and insensate evil.
the old Red Ryder carbine axe that you on the shot range model air rifle. My kid got it comes in stock. Well, I think I better have a look here for you, son.
All right. So there's Ralphie's imagination when he said, nope, this is what it's about. This is what I'm going to do. And how does the movie end? He gets his Red Ryder BB gun. You know, the fact is that what you constantly dwell on, you can flip it back over to, what you constantly dwell on is creating a picture in your imagination. And so we need to move on past that. We need to realize that many times the enemy doesn't have to put a negative image in our mind. We're creating them with our own thoughts. Let's focus on positive things. The next time you wake up in the morning, the next time it's middle of the day or at nighttime and that negative imagination comes into your mind or that negative thought, whatever the case may be, think about something positive. Just because it's a thought in your mind doesn't mean it's going to come to pass. My brother, when he went away to college, we weren't a family of means, and so my dad said, I'll help you out with what I can, but you're pretty much on your own. And so he went away and, went off to North Central Bible College in Minneapolis. And my dad was so petrified of cities, of big cities and driving in cities that he didn't know about. We would take him up to Minneapolis, drop his stuff off at the college, but then my dad would come back to the hotel and just sit there, and my brother would have to take the taxi back to school because my dad didn't want to drive around. The fact is my brother could have and he did let his imagination run at times saying, I'm not going to succeed at college. I'm not going to make a go of it. I can't do this. But you know what? He fought all of that off. And he ended up doing just fine for himself. You see, there's a lot of negative thoughts that can come into our mind, but we have to focus on other things. Those thoughts in our mind are just that. They're thoughts. They're imagination. They have no merit. So focus on what God's placed in your mind. Focus on something else. Change the channel. Someone said this, why is it that we let our imagination run wild only on the negative direction? We imagine the worst. We imagine the worst. Imagine what's not going to work. Why don't you start letting your imagination run wild in the right direction? Imagine living a supersized life. Imagine accomplishing your dreams. Imagine your children doing amazing things. Let's keep the right pictures in our minds. When those negative images come up, be quick to change the channel. Remember, they are not a reality. If you will protect your imagination, then you'll be like Abraham, who said, you know what, I'm 80 years old in Scripture. How am I going to have another child? How am I going to have this child? And God took Abraham outside and brought him out of the tent, marched Abraham outside in the middle of the night and said, look up. See, Abraham was beat down. How am I going to have this kid? And there's God taking Abraham and said, look up in the sky. What do you see? Stars, because that's how many descendants you're going to have. You got to believe it, though. You can't let the negative thoughts come into your mind. So the next time any of us have negative thoughts come into our mind and it's going to dictate our day, get those things out of your mind. You realize that God has something way, way better for you.